Hey guys, it's Emma Vers-Lewis and I wanted to talk to you about Assessment 2 47101 NRS. This is a self-development plan. It's due on the 7th January 2019 at 5 p.m. It is also weighted at 30% and you're aiming for 1,500 words. So let's get started. So the aim of this assessment is to enable you to build on your current strengths and plan for improvements in leading and transforming healthcare through the development of yourselves. This assessment requires you to construct a self-development plan for leadership skills that will support you to transform care, and this is an essential skill for healthcare leaders. This assessment will set you up for the rest of your careers and will be really helpful when you go for leadership positions in your clinical area. So, Assessment 2 addresses course learning outcome number 2, where you analyse your personal leadership style and preferences and identify potential for development and growth. So step 1 to complete this assessment is for you to go over to the SAW tool, which is found at the Griffith University careers page. That's the link right there. And you complete some self-assessment tools. So this is what the page looks like, and each of the different tabs you'll have different leadership and personal development tools for you to follow through with. And the SAW model stands for self-awareness, opportunities, aspirations and results. So let's get started and have a closer look. So that's what the page looks like as you follow it down. When you click on the links, like what are your values, that link, it'll take you to other resources which help you identify the values that you find most important in your life, and so on with things like character strengths and career interests, etc. So the idea is that you actually get a greater understanding of your capabilities and strengths, and then have a better understanding of where any weaknesses and potential that you have for growth might be. And then this will form a great part of the assessment later on. So you use this information and you write a brief biography about yourself. So no more than 200 words for the biography part of it, and that's a professional biography. It might say things like, you know, you're a educator or a clinical nurse consultant or a clinical nurse or an RN in a particular health setting, or streams such as midwifery, social work, etc. So you give the reader a bit of a background about your context, why you're doing your studies potentially, and a little bit about your leadership style as well. So you can use the SAW tools as a springboard to find out more information. If you've done any previous leadership assessments before, or you're interested in doing more, you can include these. Just make sure that you reference them appropriately and still stick to your word count. So then step 3 is you develop a self-development plan using what you've learned about yourself from the tools that you've used to support your development as a leader into the future. So your plan should focus on transformative leadership skills that you would need to possess to be able to support care transformations in your specific stream or discipline area. So you should include specific strategies and action planning to achieve the skills that are relevant to you and your discipline area. The results you aim to achieve should be achievable and measurable. So if you're a grad nurse, you probably wouldn't put that you want to be a director of nursing within 2 years. It has to be something that you can achieve. You're allowed to be ambitious for sure, but just make sure that it's something that you can achieve reasonably, and also that you can measure it. You can use things like SMART tools that you've discussed in the that we've discussed in the course content to make sure that your things are measurable. And when you're using strategies that are discussed in literature, support these with evidence as appropriate. So let's talk about the referencing a little bit more. So reference as appropriate in your self-development plan, including your measurable aims. There's no minimum references because this is a unique piece about yourselves. So depending on your styles, you might have a lot of references, you might have a few. Just make sure that you use referencing as appropriate and specific to your own needs. If you do reference, make sure it's the APA 6th edition. I've included the SOAR framework reference right there on this PowerPoint because sometimes it's a little bit tricky to get started and find that one specifically. So it's right there for you. Let's have a quick talk through the criteria. Criteria 1 is about your description of yourselves. It's worth 35 marks. So the first part of that is the biography that we talked about before. So this is the brief professional biography. And so limit that to 200 words. The next part is a self-assessment presented according to the SOAR framework. So this is where you'll discuss what you've learned based on that framework. And importantly, the description of your leadership style based on your self-assessment. So what have you learned about what type of leader you are, and outline that there. Criteria 2 is worth 45 marks. This is the actual plan part of the assessment. This is where the elements or areas chosen for your development, you've outlined them for the reader, and that they're appropriate to your self-assessment that you did for criteria 1. You identify transformative leadership skills in yourselves that require development and enhancement. That the strategies are linked to opportunities and aspirations. That's the O and the A part of the SOAR framework. And that there's a clear action plan that you've set in place to achieve them. Where appropriate, the strategies are supported using evidence. And the arguments are concise and presented related to how the development plan will support you to transform care in your discipline area. Criteria 3 is worth up to 10 marks, and that's all about results. So here we want to make sure that your results are clear and they're concise, and there are links to the strategies that you've chosen and the aims and the results that you're trying to achieve. You have to make sure that your results are achievable, as we discussed, and measurable in some way. References, like we talked about, have to be APA 6th edition when you use them. Make sure your presentation conforms to the Griffith Health Writing and Referencing Guide. You can find that at the Learning at GU page. If used, your references are predominantly sourced from a range of scholarly literature. Make sure that there's correct spelling, grammar and punctuation, and you stick to the word count. That your ideas are excellently organised and logical. Your key points are clear and relevant to the topic, and the structure of the presentation supports clarity, flow, and the relationship of parts to each other. So like I said, always refer to the Griffith Health Writing and Referencing Guide. It's really important to stick to those formatting and layout guides. You also need to complete the electronic cover sheet in order for the final submission point to be available. If you don't complete the cover sheet, you can't submit your assignment. I won't mark the submissions that are in the draft folder. The marks don't come across to the Mark Centre, and it's a lot of work on the back end. So make sure you find the right submission point. You can use headings to organise your work. It makes it a little bit more logical in this type of presentation. You can also use tables if you like to support your structure. It's appropriate for you to write in first person in this assessment, and refer to those marking guidelines that we just walked through. That will help you work out how heavily we weight different sections of the assignment. Put your word count, which excludes the reference list, on the assignment title page, and don't forget to adhere to the word limits, as we're instructed to stop reading after the word limits are reached. So any questions, you can always email me. That's my email address. Also, I've put up some exemplars of the previous student submissions. So hopefully this will give you a good idea of what previous students have submitted, so that'll help you get started. Also, check for answers in the peer discussion board. So this has been set up to support adult learning principles, and it's where you can share information amongst yourselves. I will monitor it intermittently, but not frequently. So if you've got specific questions, email me directly and I will respond as soon as I can. So I hope this has been helpful. I look forward to reading your assignments. Last semester I found them really exciting. Lots of people gave feedback that they found them really helpful in their professional development. So I hope you all feel the same. Okay, thanks guys.